My name is Eleanor Morgan, and at 67 years old, I thought I'd seen it all in this life. 40 years raising my son Nathan alone after my husband James died of a sudden heart attack. 40 years of working without rest at the insurance company, eating simple meals so I could pay for tutoring, sleepless nights when Nathan was sick, silent pride when he graduated with honors from college. 40 years of sacrifice that I never regretted because I did it out of love. But what I never imagined was that one spring day, while preparing to go to my grandson Tyler's birthday party, I would discover that for my son, I had ceased to be important. The phone's ring interrupted my thoughts as I smoothed the wrinkles from my navy blue dress, the one I saved for special occasions. It was Nathan. "Mom, there's been a change of plans," he said with that rushed voice he always used when he had news I wasn't going to like. "I've ordered an Uber that will pick you up in an hour." I froze, my hairbrush halfway to my head. "An Uber? But I thought you said your car was in the shop and you were going to pick me up with mine." There was an uncomfortable silence before Nathan cleared his throat. "Well, Christine's mother needs a ride. You know, Diane lives on the other side of town and has no way to get there. It's more practical to use your car to pick her up." "My car?" I asked, feeling a knot forming in my throat. The small Honda that I had bought with 10 years' worth of savings, the one I had temporarily lent to Nathan when his was in the shop, and that had never returned to my garage. "Yes, Mom, it's just for today. You understand, right?" Always that phrase, "you understand." As if my understanding was a blank check that Nathan could cash at will. "Of course, son," I replied automatically, as I had done all my life. "I understand." As I finished getting ready, I couldn't stop thinking about how things had changed. 5 years ago, when Tyler was born, I was the first person they called from the hospital. Nathan had cried with emotion when I held my grandson in my arms for the first time. "Mom, I want you to be part of every important moment in his life," he had told me then. But since Christine went back to work, her mother Diane had gradually become the central figure in the family. The grandmother who lived closer, who had more time, who knew important people who could help the child in the future. The Uber arrived punctually, a modest vehicle with a silent driver who barely greeted me. During the journey, I observed the streets of Boston that I knew so well, wondering when my life had taken this turn. I remembered all the times Nathan would come for Sunday lunch, how he would tell me about his problems at work, how he would consult me before making important decisions. When had he stopped needing me for anything more than the money I deposited monthly into Tyler's education savings account? When we arrived at my son's house, a beautiful colonial in the suburbs that he could never have afforded without the down payment I gave him by selling the few pieces of jewelry my mother had left me, I saw my own car parked in the driveway. From it descended Diane, a woman my age who looked 10 years younger, thanks to her regular visits to the salon and her elegant suits that I could never afford. Nathan was helping her out with an exaggerated bow while Christine hugged her effusively. The three laughed as if they shared a wonderful secret. I paid the Uber driver and stood for a moment on the sidewalk watching the scene. My heart ached painfully as I adjusted the small gift I had bought for Tyler, a storybook that had taken me 3 months to save for. I wondered if it would matter compared to what Diane had surely bought him. What I didn't know then was that this afternoon would not only change my relationship with my family, but my entire life. Because sometimes respect must be demanded when it isn't freely given. And I was about to discover that even at 67, it's not too late to learn to value yourself, As I walked toward the entrance, I saw Tyler running toward me from the garden, his little arms outstretched and his smile lighting up his angelic face. At least for him, I was still important. Or was I? "Grandma!" shouted Tyler, throwing himself into my arms. I lifted him with effort, feeling the weight of my years in my back, but the pain was worth it to feel his little arms around my neck. "My precious boy, happy birthday," I said, kissing his rosy cheeks. "I've brought you something special." His eyes sparkled with curiosity as I took out the colorfully wrapped package from my purse. Before I could hand it to him, Christine appeared by my side. "Mom, Eleanor, you made it," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She took Tyler from my arms. "Come, honey. Grandma Diane has brought you something amazing." And just like that, in an instant, my grandson and my gift were left in limbo as Christine carried Tyler toward Diane, who was waiting in the center of the garden next to a huge box wrapped in shiny paper. Nathan approached and gave me a quick kiss on the cheek. "Mom, glad you could make it. Come in, everyone's in the backyard." "Everyone? Who's everyone?" I asked, following him. "Christine's family, some friends from work, parents of Tyler's daycare friends," he answered distractedly while checking his watch. Entering the garden, I understood that it was a much larger celebration than they had told me. There were at least 30 people, most of them strangers to me. In one corner, several men surrounded a grill. In another, a group of elegant women chatted animatedly, and in the center, like a queen in her court, was Diane, holding my grandson on her lap while he enthusiastically opened a huge robot that walked and talked. "Grandma, look what Grandma Dee gave me," Tyler shouted when he saw me approach. "It's a space robot." My heart melted. "It's beautiful, my love," I replied, trying to maintain my smile. I extended my modest gift. "I brought you something too." Tyler took the package, but before he could open it, Diane intervened. "Put it on the gift table, sweetie. You'll open it later with all the others. Now let's play with your new robot." Tyler nodded obediently and left my gift on a table already full of luxurious packages. My heart sank seeing my small package lost among so much splendor. "Eleanor, would you like something to drink?" Nathan asked, appearing at my side. "A little water would be nice," I replied, feeling my throat dry. "Of course. Sit wherever you can. We're a bit crowded." I looked around and saw that all the chairs were taken, except for a small bench in the farthest corner of the garden. I headed there, observing how Nathan joined the group surrounding Diane and Tyler without bringing me the water I had asked for. From my lonely corner, I watched the party unfold as if I were a stranger. Christine moved gracefully among the guests, introducing Diane to everyone as Tyler's favorite grandmother. Nathan seemed proud to be related to Christine's family, especially her father, an important businessman who could help him in his career. When it was time for photos, Diane occupied the central place next to Tyler and the cake. Christine motioned for me to come closer, but they positioned me in the last row, barely visible. "You're short, Mom, Eleanor," Christine explained with a tense smile when she noticed my expression. "This way everyone will fit in the picture." After blowing out the candles, Tyler opened his gifts. Mine was one of the last. When he finally unwrapped the storybook that had cost me so much to choose and pay for, he barely looked at it before setting it aside to continue with the next larger, more flashy gift. What hurt me the most came later, during the toast. Nathan raised his glass and said, "I especially want to thank Diane, who is not only a wonderful mother-in-law but the best grandmother Tyler could have. Thanks to her, Our son will be able to attend the best school in Boston, as she has generously decided to take care of his education." I felt as if I had been slapped. For 3 years, I had been depositing half of my modest pension into an account for Tyler's education, a sacrifice that meant eating meat only twice a week, forgoing medications not covered by insurance, and forgetting about small luxuries like a new robe for winter. And now, somehow, all the credit was going to Diane. As the guests applauded and Diane accepted the praise with false modesty, a resolution began to form within me, a resolution that would change the course of our lives forever. Because there are moments in life when you must decide whether to continue being invisible or start demanding the respect you deserve. And that spring day, on my grandson's 5th birthday, I decided that enough was enough. What Nathan and his family didn't know was that this silent grandmother had more strength than they had ever imagined, and I was about to prove it. When I returned to my small apartment that night, after another Uber ride that I paid for out of my pocket, something inside me had irrevocably changed. The question was, were they prepared for the new Eleanor Morgan? Monday morning, I woke up with a mental clarity that I hadn't experienced in years. All night I had been tossing and turning in bed, reliving each moment of humiliation at the party, remembering every instance when Nathan had chosen Christine's family over me. It wasn't just the car or just the party. It was a pattern that had gradually been established since Tyler was born. My small apartment in downtown Boston, which had previously seemed cozy to me, now felt like a cage. The walls were covered with photographs of Nathan and Tyler. On every surface there was some memento of my life as a mother and grandmother. But where was Eleanor in all this? The woman who had once dreamed of traveling, of learning to paint, of living near the ocean. I sat at the small kitchen table with a cup of coffee and took out my accounting notebook. With meticulous precision, I began to note all the expenses I had covered for Nathan and his family over the past 5 years. The down payment for their house, $60,000 from the sale of my previous condo. The car they now used as their own. The monthly transfers for Tyler's education, $500 a month for 3 years. The temporary loans that had never been repaid. The expensive gifts for birthdays and Christmases. The total sum left me breathless. With that money, I could have bought a small house in Cape Cod, the coastal town where I had always dreamed of living. I could have traveled, seen new places, lived experiences that I had always postponed for when Nathan no longer needed me. But the most painful part wasn't the money. It was realizing that, despite all my sacrifices, for Nathan I was simply a source of resources, not a person with my own desires and needs. I picked up the phone and called the bank. I needed to make important changes. "Good morning. I'd like to talk about the savings account in the name of Tyler Bennett Morgan," I said when I finally spoke with an account executive. "Of course, Mrs. Morgan, what do you need?" "I want to cancel the automatic monthly transfer that goes from my account to that one, the $500 transfer on the 5th of each month." "Are you sure?" "Completely sure." "Would you like us to notify the other account holder of this change?" "That won't be necessary. They'll find out on their own." Next, I called my lawyer, Mr. Sullivan, who had handled my affairs since James's death. I briefly explained the situation and asked him to prepare some documents. "Mrs. Morgan, are you completely sure about this?" he asked with concern in his voice. "These are important decisions that will affect your relationship with your family." "I'm more sure than ever, Robert. It's time I thought about myself." That afternoon, while organizing my important documents, I found a brochure I had kept for years. Oceanfront Homes in Cape Cod, Your Dream Retirement. I had picked it up at a real estate agency shortly after retiring, thinking that someday, perhaps, I could afford that small luxury. Then had come Nathan and Christine's engagement, Tyler's arrival, and that brochure had been buried under bills and obligations. I looked at it for a long time, caressing the images of small white houses overlooking the Atlantic. I took my phone again and dialed the number of the real estate agency that appeared on the brochure, without much hope that it would still be operational after so many years. To my surprise, they answered on the second ring. Coastal Dreams Real Estate. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, I replied, feeling a sudden nervousness. I'm calling about the brochure for houses in Cape Cod. Oh, yes. We have several properties currently available. Are you looking to buy or rent? The question took me by surprise. For so long, the idea of moving to the coast had been just a distant dream that I had never seriously considered the practical details. To buy, I heard myself say, surprising myself, something small for a single person. I have just what you need. Could you come to the office this week to see some options? Yes, I replied, feeling a bubbling excitement that I hadn't experienced in decades. I can come tomorrow. When I hung up, I stared at the phone in my hand, amazed at my own audacity. Was I really considering selling my apartment and going to live on the coast, leaving behind my son and my grandson? But then I remembered the expression on Nathan's face when he toasted to Diane, the way Christine had relegated me to the last row in the photos, how my gift had been forgotten among larger and more expensive packages. I remembered 40 years of sacrifices acknowledged only with a hurried "thanks, Mom," and an endless list of new demands. Yes, I was ready for a change, and Nathan would have to get used to the idea that his mother was a person with a life of her own, not just an open wallet and a free babysitter available at any time. What I didn't know then was that my decision would unleash a family storm that would test the bonds that united us. Would I be willing to stand firm when things got difficult? Would I have the strength to rebuild my life at 67? The answer would come sooner than I expected, and in ways I could never have imagined. The ring of my phone interrupted my thoughts as I reviewed the documents I had prepared to take to the real estate agency. It was Nathan. "Mom, are you okay?" he asked without even greeting me. "Perfectly fine, son. Why do you ask?" "It's just, the bank called me. They say you've canceled the transfer to Tyler's account." I took a deep breath. This was the first test of my new resolution. "That's right, Nathan. I've decided it's time to make some changes to my finances." There was such a long silence that I thought the call had been dropped. "But Mom," he finally continued with a tense voice, "that money is for Tyler's education. How can you just cancel it? According to the toast you made at the party, Diane will generously take care of Tyler's education. I don't see why I should continue contributing." Another silence, this one more charged than the previous one. "That was just a social comment, Mom. You know how these things are. Diane has offered to help with some extra expenses, but we count on your monthly contribution for the basic tuition." A social comment? Indignation gave me courage. Do you know what it means for me to contribute $500 a month from my pension? It means eating meat only twice a week, giving up medications not covered by insurance, forgetting about small luxuries, and then I hear you publicly thank Diane while my contribution doesn't even merit a mention. Mom, you're exaggerating. Everyone knows how much you do for Tyler. No, Nathan. Nobody knows because you never mention it. And I'm tired of being invisible." "What do you mean by invisible? We always invite you to family gatherings." "As a second-class guest, you send me in an Uber while you use my car to pick up Diane. You seat me in the last row for photos. You don't even make sure I have a comfortable chair or something to drink." "That's not fair, Mom. We were very busy with the party." "Too busy to treat the woman who raised you alone with dignity, who worked double shifts to pay for your education, who gave you the down payment for your house, that woman who you now treat like an ATM, who deserves neither your time nor your consideration." My voice trembled, but not from fear or sadness. It was an indignation that I had been repressing for too long. "Look," said Nathan with that conciliatory tone he used when he wanted to manipulate me, "I understand that you might have felt a bit displaced at the party. I'll talk to Christine to make sure you feel more included next time. But about the money, Mom, we really need it. Tyler's school is expensive and—" "I have to go, Nathan," I interrupted, surprising even myself. I had never before cut a conversation with my son. "I have an important appointment." "An appointment? With whom?" "With my future, son. With my future." I hung up before he could respond and stared at the phone, expecting it to ring again immediately. It didn't. Nathan was probably too shocked by my unusual behavior to react right away. I grabbed my purse and the documents I had prepared. The real estate agency was waiting for me, and for the first time in decades, I felt I was doing something exclusively for myself. The agency was in downtown Boston in a historic building I had always admired. I was greeted by a middle-aged woman named Barbara, with a warm smile that made me feel immediately comfortable. "Mrs. Morgan, it's a pleasure to meet you," she said, shaking my hand. "I've selected some properties that I think might interest you. Shall we sit down and review them?" For the next hour, Barbara showed me photos of small houses and cottages in Cape Cod, all with some view of the ocean. As we looked at each property, something inside me was awakening, an emotion I hadn't felt in a long time: hope. "This is my favorite for you," said Barbara, showing me pictures of a small white house with a front garden full of hydrangeas. "It's just a 5-minute walk to the beach, has 2 bedrooms, a backyard perfect for plants, and best of all, it fits within your budget if you sell your current apartment." I looked at the photos with longing. I could almost feel the sea breeze, smell the flowers, imagine myself sitting on that patio, reading a book without worrying about other people's schedules or endless demands. "Could I see it today?" I asked, again surprising both Barbara and myself with my decisiveness. "Of course. I can take you right now if you'd like. It's about a 90-minute drive." "Let's go," I said, feeling a mix of terror and enthusiasm at the prospect of such a radical change. During the trip to Cape Cod, Barbara told me about the town, its markets, its local festivals, the community of retirees who enjoyed the coastal tranquility. I listened attentively, imagining a life completely different from the one I had led until now. When we finally arrived at the small white house, I felt something strange in my chest. It wasn't the usual pain of my arthritis, but a sensation I had forgotten, the excitement of being exactly where I was meant to be. The house was perfect in its simplicity. The white clapboard walls gleamed in the spring sun. The garden, though small, was bursting with color from hydrangeas and red geraniums. From the upper deck you could see a patch of blue sea between the neighboring roofs. "It's exactly as I dreamed," I murmured almost to myself. "The current owner is a widow who's moving with her daughter to Chicago. explained Barbara as she opened the front door. "She's eager to sell, so the price is very reasonable." We toured the house slowly. The small but functional kitchen, the two simple but bright bedrooms, the newly renovated bathroom, and the best part, the backyard with a cherry tree and enough space to create a small vegetable garden. "What do you think, Mrs. Morgan?" asked Barbara when we finished the tour. I sat on one of the steps on the patio, feeling the sun on my face and listening to the distant sound of the sea. For a moment, I allowed myself to imagine a life here, waking up to the sound of birds, walking to the beach every morning, making new friends among the neighbors, growing tomatoes and herbs in my own garden. A life where I would be the protagonist, not just a supporting figure in someone else's story. "I want it," I said firmly. "I want to start the paperwork today." Barbara smiled, visibly surprised by my quick but decisive decision. "Excellent choice, Mrs. Morgan. If I may make a personal comment, I think this house has been waiting for you." As we drove back to Boston to start the paperwork, I felt my phone vibrating repeatedly in my purse. I ignored it. Whoever it was, my new life couldn't wait. What I didn't know then was that my phone was registering 6 missed calls from Nathan, each more urgent than the last. The world I had carefully built around my son and my grandson was beginning to crumble, and he was just beginning to realize it. But by then, I had already taken the first step on my own path, one that would lead me to discover an Eleanor Morgan who had been asleep for too long. When I returned to my apartment that evening, I found Nathan waiting at my door. His expression oscillated between concern and irritation. "Where have you been?" he asked as soon as he saw me. "I've been calling you all day." "I had matters to attend to," I replied, looking for my keys in my purse. "I didn't know I needed to inform you of my movements." He looked at me as if I'd grown a second head. I'd never spoken to him like that before. "Mom, I'm worried about you. First you canceled the transfer without warning, and then you disappear all day. It's not like you." I opened the door and went in, leaving it open for him to follow. I put down my purse and the real estate agency documents on the table. "What's that?" asked Nathan, pointing to the papers with the agency logo. "They're papers to sell my apartment," I replied with a calmness I didn't know I possessed. "I'm moving to Cape Cod." Nathan's expression went from confusion to bewilderment and then to disbelief. "You're moving to Cape Cod? When did you decide this?" "Today." "Mom, that's crazy. You can't make a decision like that out of nowhere. You have to think it through, consult with the family." "Why?" I asked, pouring myself a glass of water. I didn't offer him one, another small act of rebellion. I'm an adult woman, a widow, with all my papers in order. I don't need anyone's permission to decide where I want to live. But, stammered Nathan, clearly thrown off by my attitude. "What about Tyler? What about us? We're here in Boston." "And I've been here my entire life, Nathan. I've been here every time you needed me. When you needed money for the down payment on your house, when you needed my car, when you needed me to take care of Tyler. I've always been here, sacrificing my own dreams and needs. But no more." Nathan collapsed into a chair as if his legs couldn't support him. "I don't understand what's happening, Mom. Is it because of the party? Because of the Uber?" "If it's that, I'm sorry. I didn't think it was so important." "It's not just about the party, Nathan. It's about everything. It's about 40 years of giving without receiving. It's about being invisible except when you need something from me. It's about hearing you thank Diane for Tyler's education when I've been giving half of my pension each month. It's about feeling like a stranger in my own grandson's life. Nathan had the decency to blush at my words. Mom, you know we love you. You know you're important to us. No, Nathan, I know that what I can do for you matters. My money, my time, my constant availability. But me, Eleanor, the person, doesn't seem to matter to you at all. There was a long silence while Nathan processed my words. Finally, he spoke in a softer voice. What if we promise to change? If I assure you things will be different? Promises mean nothing without actions, son. And I'm tired of waiting. What can I do to make you change your mind? His voice had an almost desperate tone that I had never heard from him before. It's not about changing my mind, Nathan. It's about me changing my life, I replied, feeling a serenity that contrasted with his agitation. I found a small but beautiful house in Cape Cod, 5 minutes from the beach. It has a patio where I can grow my own herbs and a cherry tree. From the deck you can see the ocean. But Mom, what will you do there alone? You don't know anyone. I'll meet new people. I'll make friends. I'll read the books I've always wanted to read. I'll learn to paint. I'll walk on the beach every morning. My voice filled with enthusiasm as I imagined this new life. I'll do all the things I've postponed for decades because I was too busy taking care of everyone except myself. And the money? Cape Cod isn't cheap? There it was, the real concern. I'll sell this apartment. With what I get, plus my savings, I can buy the house in cash and have enough left to live comfortably on my pension. Your savings? Asked Nathan, turning pale. You mean the money you were going to use for Tyler's college? I mean the money I've saved throughout my life. My money, Nathan, and I've decided to use it for myself. He ran a hand through his hair, clearly trying to process this new reality. Mom, you can't do this to us. We were counting on you. For Tyler's education, for emergencies, for everything except treating me with respect and consideration. I completed his sentence. For everything except truly including me in your life. That's not fair, he protested. You've always been part of our lives. As a silent provider, yes. As a person with feelings, desires, and dreams of my own. Nathan stood up and began pacing around the small living room, agitated. Then he stopped and looked at me with an expression I couldn't interpret. You know what? I think you need time to think. You're upset about something that happened at the party, and you're making hasty decisions. We'll talk when you're calmer. That condescending tone, as if I were a child throwing a tantrum, was the final confirmation I needed. No, Nathan, I don't need time to think. I've spent 40 years thinking about everyone but myself. My decision is made. I'm moving to Cape Cod, and if you want to continue being part of my life, you'll have to accept that I will no longer be your personal bank or your babysitter available at all hours. He stared at me as if he didn't recognize me, and maybe it was true. The Eleanor Morgan standing before him was not the same one who had dedicated her entire life to pleasing him. This isn't just about you, he finally said, with a tense voice. It's about Tyler, too. He needs you, and I'll be there for him, but on my terms, as a grandmother who is respected and valued, not as a walking bank account. Christine and I have expenses, Mom. The mortgage, Tyler's daycare, the car. And I'm 67, Nathan. I have arthritis, high blood pressure, and the doctor says I need to take better care of myself. I can't keep sacrificing my health and well-being so you can maintain a lifestyle you can't afford without my help. He fell silent, absorbing my words. Finally, he spoke in a voice I barely recognized. "When are you leaving?" "As soon as the sale paperwork is complete. A month, maybe 2. He nodded slowly, as if processing critical information. "I guess we'll have to adjust our budget," he said, more to himself than to me. "It seems so." He approached the door, still with that bewildered expression. "I have to talk to Christine about this. She's not going to understand. Maybe it's time for both of you to understand that you can't build your life assuming others will pay your bills." He looked at me one last time as if he wanted to say something more, but finally left without another word. When I closed the door behind him, I felt a strange silence enveloping the apartment. It wasn't the silence of loneliness that I was used to, but the silence of freedom. For the first time in decades, I had put my own needs first, and though it had been painful, it also felt extraordinarily right. What I didn't know then was that things would get much harder before they got better. Nathan and Christine weren't prepared to accept the new reality, and they would do everything possible to make me change my mind. But I wasn't prepared to give in either. Not this time. The following days passed in a strange limbo. Nathan didn't call me, which was unusual. Normally, he contacted me at least 3 times a week, generally when he needed something for me to pick up Tyler from daycare, to lend him money until his next paycheck, to keep some important document for him. I took advantage of the silence to advance my plans. The sale of my apartment was going smoothly. There were several interested parties, and the real estate agent, an efficient woman named Lucy, had assured me that we could close the sale in less than a month. Meanwhile, I had signed a purchase agreement for the house in Cape Cod, subject to the sale of my current property. I was in the middle of sorting my belongings, deciding what I would take to my new life and what I would leave behind, when the doorbell rang. It was 11 o'clock on Saturday morning, and I wasn't expecting visitors. I was surprised to see Christine on the threshold with a tense expression and red-rimmed eyes. "Good morning, Mom, Eleanor," she said in a controlled voice. "May I come in?" "Of course," I replied, stepping aside. I noticed she was carrying a large envelope in her hand. She sat on the sofa, looking around curiously. She was probably noticing the cardboard boxes, the stacked bucks, the objects classified in different sections. "Is it true?" she asked without preamble. "Are you really going to sell your house and move to Cape Cod?" "Yes, it's true," I confirmed, sitting across from her. "It's all in motion." "But why now? Why like this, without consulting anyone?" "Who should I have consulted, Christine? It's my life, my money, my decision." "We're family," she replied, as if that explained everything. "Important decisions are made as a family. Like the decision to send me in an Uber to Tyler's party while you used my car to pick up your mother. Was that decision made as a family?" She blushed slightly but maintained her composure. "That was a matter of logistics, nothing personal." "It was very personal to me," I replied firmly, "as has been feeling invisible at every important family event, except when it comes to providing money or taking care of Tyler." Christine took a deep breath, as if preparing for what she had come to say. "Look, Mom, Eleanor, I understand that you might have felt a little displaced. My mother can be dominant sometimes, but moving so far away is not the solution. Tyler needs you nearby. Cape Cod is less than 2 hours by car, and I have the impression that Tyler will need me much less now that Diane has generously offered to take care of his education." Another blush. "About that, My mother spoke without thinking. She can help with some extra expenses. But we were counting on your monthly contribution for the basic tuition. I see. So when Nathan publicly praised her for something that I'm actually doing, it wasn't just a discourtesy, it was a lie. Don't put it that way, Christine protested. It was just a way to include my mother, to make her feel important. At the cost of making me feel insignificant? Christine looked away, uncomfortable. Then she took out the envelope she had brought and put it on the coffee table. I brought you something, she said, changing the subject. They're photos from Tyler's birthday. I thought you'd like to have them. I opened the envelope and took out a stack of printed photos. There was the whole party, Tyler blowing out the candles, opening presents, playing with other children. In almost all the images, Diane occupied a prominent place, next to Tyler, helping him open the gifts, posing proudly with Nathan and Christine. I had to look carefully to find myself, a blurry figure in the background, barely visible in one or two shots. Thank you, I said, returning the photos to the envelope. I added nothing more. The images spoke for themselves. Christine seemed to notice my reaction because she quickly took out her phone. Oh, and look what I recorded yesterday. Tyler learning to ride his new bicycle. She showed me a video where my grandson was enthusiastically pedaling with training wheels through the park near their house. Nathan was running alongside him, occasionally holding the seat to prevent falls. In the background, I could hear Diane's voice encouraging, "Very good, my champion. Grandma D is so proud." "It's lovely," I commented, returning the phone. "When did they buy him the bicycle?" "Last week. My mother saw it in a store and couldn't resist," Christine explained with a complicit smile. I then remembered the times I had mentioned to Nathan the possibility of giving Tyler a bicycle for his birthday, and how he had always told me he was still too young, that it was better to wait. "How considerate," I murmured. Christine put away her phone and looked at me directly. "Mom, Eleanor, I'll be direct. Nathan and I are worried about your decision. We think it might be hasty, perhaps influenced by some misunderstanding or temporary upset. We need you in Boston, and not just for the money," she added quickly upon seeing my expression, "but because your family, Tyler adores you. Tyler can visit me in Cape Cod. He has a room waiting for him in my new house. He can come spend weekends, enjoy the beach, help me with my garden. It will be a wonderful experience for him." But what about the logistics? We have complicated schedules. There it was. The real concern wasn't that I was moving away from them, but the inconvenience it would cause to their perfectly organized lives, where I was the solution to all problems. "You'll have to adapt, as all families do," I said. "Diane will surely be delighted to help more, given how much she adores Tyler." Christine looked at me with a mixture of frustration and disbelief. "You're really going to do it, aren't you? You're going to leave us?" "Not leaving you, Christine. I'm beginning to live my own life at last. There's a difference." She stood up, grabbing her purse with abrupt movements. "I hope you know what you're doing. Nathan is devastated, and when Tyler finds out, Tyler will understand that his grandmother also deserves to be happy," I replied calmly. "Children are more understanding than we give them credit for when we explain things honestly." "We'll see," she said, heading for the door. Before leaving, she added, "Nathan wanted me to tell you that he expects you at the notary's office on Tuesday to sign some documents about Tyler's savings account. He says he needs your signature for something related to school. Tell Nathan that if he needs my signature for anything, he should call me directly and explain exactly what it's for." Christine looked at me in surprise. I had never before questioned any request from Nathan. "I'll tell him," she replied dryly, and left without saying goodbye. When I closed the door, I stood looking at the envelope with the photos on the table. I took it and put it in one of the boxes I had labeled "to donate." I no longer needed visual reminders of my invisibility. That night, while reviewing bank documents to organize my move, I found a detail that left me frozen. There was a power of attorney that I had signed 3 years ago, giving Nathan complete access to my bank accounts in case of emergency. I had completely forgotten about it. Was that what he wanted to modify at the notary? Or did he intend to use it to access my funds before I could transfer them? The discovery kept me awake. The next morning, first thing, I called my lawyer. I had to protect my future, even from my own son if necessary, because I was discovering that when it comes to money, even the people we love most can become strangers. What I didn't know then was that Nathan had already tried to access my accounts, only to discover that I had been faster, and that his reaction upon encountering that obstacle would reveal a facet of my son that I had never wanted to see. Monday morning, I woke up before dawn, restless after a night of intermittent sleep. Concerns about what Nathan might try to do with that power of attorney had kept me awake. I dressed quickly, and as soon as the bank doors opened, I was there waiting to speak with the manager. Mr. Johnson received me in his office with the familiarity of someone who had known me for decades. I had been a loyal customer of the same bank since I married James. "Mrs. Morgan, what can I do for you?" he asked kindly. I explained my situation with as much clarity as possible, my decision to move, the sale of my apartment, my concern about the power of attorney I had signed in favor of Nathan. "I want to revoke that power and make sure that no one but me can access my accounts," I concluded. Mr. Johnson looked at me with a strange expression. "Mrs. Morgan, your son Nathan was here Friday afternoon trying to make a transfer from your main account to a joint account you have." I felt the floor moving beneath my feet. "And could he make it?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "No. Fortunately, you had changed the access conditions to your account a few days ago, limiting the power of attorney only to cases of certified medical incapacity. It was very timely." I breathed a sigh of relief. My intuition to go to the bank immediately after the confrontation with Nathan had been correct. "May I ask what amount he was trying to transfer?" Mr. Johnson consulted his computer. $30,000. The figure left me breathless. It was practically everything I had saved for my new life, not counting the value of my apartment. "I want to completely revoke that power of attorney," I said firmly, "and I want to transfer all my funds to a new account that only I have access to." "Of course, Mrs. Morgan. We'll prepare all the paperwork immediately." While I was signing the documents for the new account and the revocation of the power, my phone began ring. It was Nathan. I declined the call. It rang again and again. On the 4th attempt, I turned it off. When I left the bank with all my savings secure in a new account that only I had access to, I turned on my phone to find 7 missed calls and a text message. "Mom, we need to talk urgently. It's about Tyler." My heart skipped a beat. Had something happened to my grandson? I called immediately.
"Nathan, what's wrong with Tyler?"
I asked, trying to control the panic in my voice. "Mom, finally you answer," he replied, without the urgency I would expect if something serious had happened. "Tyler is fine, but he needs you to sign some papers for his enrollment in private school. The tuition is due this week, and without your signature on the savings account, we can't make the payment." My worry turned to indignation. You made me believe something bad had happened to my grandson just so I would sign some bank papers. "I didn't mean to scare you," he defended himself, "but it's urgent. Without that money, Tyler won't be able to attend the bilingual school next year." "Nathan," I said with a calmness I didn't feel, "did you try to make a transfer of $30,000 from my account on Friday?" There was a telling silence. "I was just getting ahead of the paperwork," he finally replied. "I knew you were going to sign for Tyler's school anyway." "No, I didn't know that. Because you hadn't consulted me, you were trying to take my money without my consent." "It's for your grandson's education," he exclaimed, as if that justified any action. "What's happened to you, Mom? You've never refused to help us." "You've never tried to steal from me, Nathan," I replied, feeling tears welling up in my eyes. "And yes, that's the right word. Trying to transfer all my money without my knowledge is theft, even if you're my son." "Don't be dramatic," he said with disdain. "I was just securing Tyler's future before you made impulsive decisions." "My decision to move to Cape Cod and live my own life is not impulsive. It's something I've dreamed of for years. And as for Tyler's education, I'd be happy to contribute, but on my terms, not by being swindled by my own son." "So you'll come to the notary tomorrow to sign, right?" he asked, deliberately ignoring the gravity of what he had tried to do. "No, Nathan, I won't sign anything, and if you try to access my accounts again, I'll take legal action." "Are you threatening me?" His voice rose, incredulous. "I'm informing you of the consequences of your actions, like the adult that you are." "This is ridiculous. Are you really going to deprive your grandson of a good education just because you're upset about a party? Don't mix things up, Nathan. Tyler's education and your attempt to take my money without permission are separate issues. I'm willing to help with his education, but through direct monthly transfers to the school, not by giving you unlimited access to my savings. That's not practical, Mom. There are additional expenses, books, uniforms, field trips. That's what parents are for, Nathan, to cover their children's expenses with their own work. Like I did with you." There was a tense silence on the other end of the line. "I don't recognize you, Mom," he finally said. "You were never this selfish." His words hurt more than I wanted to admit, but I stood firm. "It's not selfishness to want to live my own life and protect my future, Nathan. It's common sense. Something you should have learned a long time ago." I hung up before he could respond. I stood on the street, trembling not from cold, but from the shock of discovering how far my own son had been willing to go. That afternoon, as I continued packing my belongings for the move, the doorbell rang. I was surprised to find Tyler at the door, accompanied by Diane, who was waiting at the end of the hallway with an impatient expression. "Grandma," exclaimed my grandson, hugging my legs, "I came to see you." I picked him up and hugged him tightly, inhaling his scent of children's shampoo and cookies. "My precious boy, what a wonderful surprise." "Daddy says you're going to live at the beach," he said, looking at me with his big brown eyes. "Can I go with you?" My heart tightened at his innocent question. "Of course you can come visit me, my love. You'll have your own room with a view of the ocean. With shells and boats?" "With all the shells and boats you want," I promised, kissing his forehead. Diane cleared her throat from the hallway. "Tyler, sweetheart, we have to go. Remember, we're going to the amusement park." "Is Grandma coming too?" asked Tyler, without letting go of me. "No, honey. Today is just for you and me," Diane replied with a tense smile. "Your grandma has many things to do, right, Eleanor?" I nodded. swallowing the bitterness. "Another day, my love. I promise we'll do something special very soon." Tyler gave me one last hug before running toward Diane. "Bye, Grandma." "Goodbye, my treasure," I replied, watching them walk away down the hall. I closed the door and leaned against it, letting tears flow freely for the first time since all this began. I didn't cry from sadness, but from the painful clarity of what was happening. Nathan and Christine were using Tyler and Diane in a desperate attempt to manipulate me. But if they thought seeing my grandson would make me change my mind about my move, they were very wrong. On the contrary, it strengthened my determination. I wanted to create a special place where Tyler could visit me and get to know a different grandmother, a woman with her own interests, with a full and dignified life, not just a silent provider of money and care. I wiped my tears and returned to my task of packing. In 2 weeks, I would sign the sale of my apartment and the purchase of my house in Cape Cod. A new life awaited me, a life that I had postponed for far too long. What I didn't know then was that Nathan had one last ace up his sleeve, a desperate move that would test not only our relationship, but my own determination to live on my own terms. The news came 2 days later through a call from my lawyer, Mr. Sullivan. "Mrs. Morgan, I have something delicate to communicate," he said in a grave voice. "Your son Nathan has filed a petition requesting an evaluation of your mental capacity." The teacup I was holding slipped from my hands, shattering against the tile floor. "My mental capacity?" I repeated, incredulous. "Yes, he alleges that your recent decisions, selling your apartment, canceling your financial contributions, moving to Cape Cod, are signs of cognitive decline that requires legal intervention." I sat down slowly, feeling that my legs wouldn't support me. "Can he do that?" "Legally, he can request the evaluation, yes. Especially considering that you're 67 years old and he's your only son. But don't worry, Mrs. Morgan. This tactic is unfortunately common in family conflicts over money, and the courts are increasingly attentive to these abuses." "What should I do?" I asked, still trying to process the magnitude of Nathan's betrayal. "First, stay calm. We'll prepare a formal response. Meanwhile, it would be good if you visited your primary care physician for a general exam, including a basic cognitive assessment. That will give us recent documentation about your perfect mental state." I followed Mr. Sullivan's instructions mechanically, as if living in a nightmare. I made an appointment with Dr. Mitchell, my doctor for 2 decades, who was outraged when I explained the situation. "Your mental capacity? You?" he exclaimed, adjusting his glasses in disbelief. "Mrs. Morgan, in my 30 years of medical practice, I've known few people with a mind as clear as yours." After an exhaustive examination, including standard cognitive tests, Dr. Mitchell gave me a detailed report. "Here you go, Mrs. Morgan. Mental state, excellent. Decision-making capacity intact. For someone to suggest otherwise is frankly an insult to your intelligence." I thanked him for his support with tears in my eyes. It was comforting, amid so much betrayal, to find people who saw me as what I was, a woman perfectly capable of deciding about her own life. Upon leaving the office, I turned on my phone to find 3 missed calls from Nathan and a voicemail. "Mom, please call me. This is getting out of control. I just want what's best for you." What's best for me? The phrase resonated in my mind with bitter irony as I walked through the streets of Boston. How could Nathan believe that questioning my sanity was best for me? Or was best for me in his mind simply what was most convenient for him? I decided not to return his call. Instead, I headed to the real estate agency to verify that Nathan's attempt to declare me incompetent hadn't affected the procedures for selling my apartment. Lucy, my agent, greeted me with a worried expression. "Mrs. Morgan, we received a strange call from a lawyer who claims to represent your son. He insinuated that you might not be in full possession of your mental faculties to make this sale. My son is trying to prevent me from selling my apartment and moving," I explained with all the dignity I could muster. "But I can assure you that I am perfectly capable of making my own decisions. I have a recent medical report that confirms it." I showed her the document Dr. Mitchell had given me. Lucy read it carefully and nodded. "This should be sufficient. We'll proceed with the sale as planned." As I left the real estate agency, I felt exhausted, as if I had aged 10 years in 1 week. Nathan's betrayal weighed on me like a stone. How could my own son, whom I had loved and protected throughout his life, try to declare me incompetent just to control my money? I sat on a bench in a nearby park watching the pigeons and children playing. An older woman, perhaps my age or even older, was doing Tai Chi with fluid, precise movements, her face serene, her mind clearly focused. "Excuse me," said a voice beside me. I turned to see a woman in her 60s, with gray hair pulled back in an elegant bun. "Yes," I replied. "I hope I don't seem intrusive, but I've been sitting here watching you look so downcast. Are you okay?" Normally, I would have offered a polite smile and assured her everything was fine. But something in the genuine concern in her eyes made me be honest. "The truth is, no. I'm going through a difficult time with my son." The woman sat down beside me, maintaining a respectful distance. "I understand. Children can break our hearts in ways no one else can," she said with a sad smile. "I'm Margaret, by the way." "Eleanor," I replied, shaking her hand. "Eleanor Morgan. Do you mind if I ask what happened? Sometimes it helps to talk to someone who isn't involved." I don't know why, but something about Margaret inspired trust. Perhaps it was because she seemed genuinely interested, or because I desperately needed to talk to someone who didn't have a personal interest in my money. I told her everything: the years of sacrifice, Nathan's wedding, Tyler's birthday party, my decision to move to Cape Cod, Nathan's attempt to access my accounts, and finally, the petition to evaluate my mental capacity. Margaret listened without interrupting, nodding occasionally, her eyes reflecting understanding and sometimes indignation. "What a difficult situation," she said when I finished, "and how painful that your own son would try to declare you incompetent just to control your money. What hurts me most is realizing that, for him, my value was in what I could provide, not in who I am," I confessed. 40 years of unconditional love, and now I'm treated as if I were a bank account that has become rebellious. "It's a heartbreaking experience," nodded Margaret. "You know, I went through something similar a few years ago. My daughter and her husband wanted me to give them my retirement money to open a business. When I refused, they tried to convince the entire family that I was senile." "What did you do?" I asked, surprised to find someone who understood exactly what I was going through. "I stood firm," she said with a serene smile. "I sold my house in New York, moved to a small apartment here in Boston, and began to live the life I had always dreamed of. Now I teach ceramics at a cultural center. I have wonderful friends, and my relationship with my daughter, though still complicated, is at least based on a mutual respect that didn't exist before." "How did you find the strength to stand firm?" I asked, admiring her tranquility. I understood that if I gave in, I would be teaching my daughter that it was okay to treat me as a resource, not as a person, and that I deserved more than that. She looked me directly in the eyes. "You deserve more too, Eleanor." Her words resonated deeply within me. "You know what's most ironic?" I said after a moment. "Nathan always talks about how important it is to teach Tyler values. What value is he teaching now? That it's okay to treat your mother as an obstacle when she doesn't do what you want?" Margaret nodded sadly. "Children sometimes forget that we continue to be their teachers, even when they're adults. And the most important lessons are those we teach by example." We sat in silence for a moment, observing park life unfold around us, children playing, elderly people chatting, couples walking hand in hand. "Do you like ceramics, Eleanor?" Margaret finally asked. "I've never tried it," I confessed. "I've always wanted to learn to paint, but I never found the time. There's a wonderful cultural center near Cape Cod where I teach once a week. If you finally move there, I'd be delighted to introduce you to some people. It's a very welcoming group." I felt a lump forming in my throat at her unexpected kindness. "I'd like that very much." We exchanged phone numbers, and when we said goodbye, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. The path I had chosen was still difficult, but I no longer felt so alone. That night, while preparing my dinner, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, I found myself face to face with Nathan. He looked disheveled, like someone who hadn't slept well, with dark circles under his eyes and unshaven beard. "Mom," he said in a hoarse voice, "we need to talk." I let him in, noticing how his eyes widened at the sight of the packing boxes and furniture covered with sheets. The reality of my move was becoming increasingly tangible. "Would you like some coffee?" I offered, more out of habit than from any real desire to prolong his visit. "No, thank you." He sat heavily on the sofa. "Mom, this has to stop. This war between us, it's not good for anyone." "There's no war, Nathan. I'm just making decisions about my own life, and you're doing everything possible to prevent me from doing so. Because you're acting irrationally," he exclaimed, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "Selling your apartment, moving to a town where you don't know anyone, cutting off financial support to your own grandson, that's not the behavior of the mother I know." I looked at him sadly. "Maybe you never really knew me, Nathan. Maybe you only saw what you wanted to see, a provider, a caretaker, a personal bank. That's unfair, Mom. You know I love you. Do you love me enough to try to have me declared mentally incompetent?" His face flushed. "That was a mistake. I was desperate." "Desperate for what, exactly? To lose access to my money, to have to manage without my constant help? To lose you," he shouted, hitting the arm of the sofa. "To see you move away from us, from Tyler, from the family we've built together." "I'm not moving away from anyone, Nathan. I'm just building a life of my own. Something I should have done years ago. And if that means you'll have to work a little harder to maintain our relationship, then maybe it's time for you to learn that relationships require work from both sides." He stared at me as if seeing a stranger. "Have you withdrawn the petition?" I asked, getting straight to the point. He nodded slowly. "This morning, Mr. Sullivan warned me that there could be legal consequences for me if I persisted with unfounded accusations." "Good." I breathed a sigh of relief. "And have you understood that I'm not going to change my mind about the move?" "It seems so," he said bitterly. "But you could at least reconsider about the money for Tyler's education. He's your grandson, Mom." And he'll continue to be even though I live in Cape Cod. As I told you before, I'm willing to contribute directly to his education through transfers to the school, not by giving you unlimited access to my funds." He remained silent for a moment. "And how are we going to explain to Tyler that his grandmother has left? He adores you, Mom. He asks about you every day." "You'll tell him the truth," I replied firmly, "that his grandmother has moved to a nice house by the sea where he can visit me whenever he wants, that he'll have his own room with a view of the water, that he can help me grow tomatoes and collect shells on the beach." Nathan looked at me with a mixture of resentment and resignation. "Do you really think you'll be babier there alone? I think I'll be happier being treated with respect and living on my own terms. And I won't be alone, Nathan. I've already met wonderful people who have offered me their friendship, people who see me as I am, not for what they can get from me." He rose slowly. "I suppose it's decided then." "It is." "Tyler asked if he could come visit you this weekend," he said, almost reluctantly. "He said he wants to see your new house." My heart lit up. "I'd love that. I'll still be here this weekend, but we could go together to Cape Cod to see the house. I'll show him his room, the garden, the nearby beach." For a moment, I saw a flash of understanding in his eyes, as if he finally realized that my move didn't mean I was ceasing to be his mother or Tyler's grandmother. "I'll bring him Saturday morning," he finally said. When Nathan left, I stood contemplating my half-packed apartment. So many memories within these walls, so many years dedicated to building a life centered around my son, and more recently, my grandson, and yet I felt light, freed from a weight I didn't even know I was carrying, the weight of living exclusively for others. In just 2 weeks, I would be in my new house in Cape Cod, beginning a completely new chapter of my life. A chapter where I would be the protagonist, not just a secondary character in someone else's story. What I didn't know then was that Saturday with Tyler would be a turning point, not only for me, but also for Nathan. And that sometimes the most important lessons we teach our children are those we never plan to give. Saturday dawned clear and bright, one of those perfect New England spring days that seem taken from a postcard. I got up early, nervous but excited about Tyler's visit. I had prepared a small backpack with sandwiches, juices, and homemade cookies, his favorites with chocolate chips. At 10 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, Tyler threw himself into my arms with his usual enthusiasm. "Grandma, we're going to see your beach house." I lifted him up, feeling his small, warm body against mine. "Yes, my love. It's going to be an adventure." Nathan was behind him, with an expression difficult to read. "Good morning, Mom." "Good morning, Nathan. Thank you for bringing him." "Can we go now, Grandma?" asked Tyler, impatient. "Of course, my treasure. Just let me get my purse." Nathan looked at his watch. "How long do you think we'll be there? I have some things to do this afternoon. We can return in time for lunch if that works for you, or I can bring Tyler back later if you prefer." He hesitated for a moment. "Better to come back for lunch. Christine will want to know how it went." The drive to Cape Cod was more pleasant than I had expected. Tyler was excited, asking questions non-stop about the house, the beach, if there would be fish, if he could swim. Nathan drove in silence, but his tension seemed to have reduced a bit. "You know, Nathan," I said when Tyler was distracted looking out the window, "I was thinking you could bring Tyler to spend a weekend a month with me, once I'm settled." He glanced at me briefly. "A whole weekend?" "Yes. He has his own room. We could spend time together at the beach, go on excursions. It would be good for him and for me. I'd have to talk to Christine, he replied, but his tone wasn't one of immediate rejection. Of course. Think about it. When we arrived at Cape Cod, I had Nathan stop at a lookout with a view of the sea so Tyler could see it well. Look, Tyler, I exclaimed, pointing to the blue expanse gleaming under the sun. The Atlantic, so big it seems endless. His eyes widened in amazement. It's huge, Grandma, bigger than the pool at the park. Nathan and I shared a smile at his innocence. For a moment, we were just a mother and son sharing a child's joy in discovering the world. The house was empty, but Barbara, the real estate agent, had given me the keys so I could show it. When I opened the door, sunlight streamed in through the windows, illuminating the white walls and the terracotta floor. It's beautiful, Grandma, exclaimed Tyler, running from room to room. Which one will be my room? This one, I said, opening the door to a small room with a window overlooking the garden. I'll paint it blue like the sea and put a bookshelf for your books and toys. Can I come sleep here? Of course, whenever your parents give you permission. I looked at Nathan, who was observing the house with a thoughtful expression.
It's nice, Mom, he admitted. Bright and bigger than I thought.
It has a special charm, doesn't it? I replied, pleasantly surprised by his positive comment. I showed him the rest. The small but functional kitchen, the backyard with the cherry tree, the deck from where you could see a patch of ocean. I can picture you here, he finally said with a sincerity that moved me. It seems right for you. Thank you, Nathan. It means a lot to hear you say that. Tyler appeared running. Dad, there's a cherry tree in the garden, and Grandma says I can help her take care of it. Nathan smiled, ruffling his son's hair. That sounds fun, champ. Can we go to the beach now? Asked Tyler, jumping with excitement. Of course, I replied. It's only a 5-minute walk. As we walked to the beach, Tyler between us, holding one hand of each, I felt a strange sense of peace. It wasn't the perfect reconciliation, but it was a beginning. The beach was almost empty, being still off-season. Tyler ran immediately to the shore, with Nathan following him closely to make sure he didn't get too wet. I stayed a bit behind, watching them. My son and my grandson, the two people I loved most in the world, enjoying together this place that would soon be my home. I sat on the sand, letting the sun warm my skin. Nathan returned after a while, leaving Tyler busy building a sandcastle a short distance away. He has energy to spare, he commented, sitting beside me. Just like you at his age, I replied with a smile. I remember how I would take you to the park and we'd come back with clothes full of mud because you had found every puddle within miles. Nathan laughed, a sound I hadn't heard in weeks. Yeah, I was always a bit of a whirlwind. We sat in silence for a moment, watching Tyler concentrating on his construction. Mom, Nathan finally said in a low voice, I want to apologize to you for everything. For the Uber, for trying to access your account, for the petition. I have no excuse. I was scared of losing you, of losing your help, and I reacted in the worst possible way. His words, so unexpected, left me breathless for a moment. You know what's saddest, Nathan? That you will never lose me, not even now. I'm your mother. I always will be. But that doesn't mean I have to sacrifice my own life to make yours easier. I know, he said almost in a whisper. And I'm ashamed to realize how much I've taken your sacrifice for granted, how I've assumed you'd always be there, solving my problems, lightening my burdens. It's a pattern we established together, I acknowledged. Me because I wanted to protect you from all pain and difficulty. You because it was comfortable to let yourself be protected. Do you think we can find a new balance? A way of being in each other's lives that is healthy for both of us?
I hope so, son. I really hope so.
Tyler came running, interrupting our conversation. Grandma, Dad, come see my castle? We got up and followed him to his creation, an impressive structure for his small hands, with a moat around it and shells decorating the towers. It's magnificent, Tyler, I exclaimed, a true palace fit for a king. It's for you, Grandma, he said with a radiant smile. So you won't be alone in your new house? My heart melted at his innocent generosity. It's the most beautiful gift I've ever been given, I said, hugging him tightly. Nathan watched us with an expression that mixed sadness and understanding. I think at that moment, seeing his son offering me a sandcastle so I wouldn't feel alone, he finally understood what I was trying to do, not to move away from them, but to build a space where I could be fully myself. On the way back to Boston, Tyler fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted by his day of adventures. Nathan drove in silence, but it was a different silence from that of the outward journey. I've been thinking about the weekend a month, he finally said. I think it would be good for Tyler. And for you. I'll talk to Christine tonight. Thank you, Nathan. It means a lot. When we arrived at my apartment, Nathan gently woke Tyler. Say goodbye to Grandma, champ. It's time to go home. Tyler hugged me sleepily. Goodbye, Grandma. I really liked your new house. Can I come back soon? Very soon, my love, I promised, kissing his forehead. Nathan surprised me by giving me an awkward but sincere hug. Thank you for today, Mom. We'll talk soon. I watched them drive away, feeling strangely light and hopeful. It hadn't been a perfect reconciliation, but it was a beginning, an acknowledgement that things were going to change, but that it didn't necessarily have to be a change for the worse. I entered my apartment, surrounded by boxes and packed memories. In a week, I would sign the sale of this place and the purchase of my house in Cape Cod. A new life awaited me, a life I had decided to live on my own terms. What I didn't know then was that this new life would be richer, more fulfilling, and more rewarding than I had ever imagined, and that my relationship with Nathan and Tyler, far from weakening with distance, would find a new depth based on mutual respect and true love. Moving day dawned clear and crisp, a perfect day to start anew. The moving truck waited below, the men efficiently loading my boxes and the few pieces of furniture I had decided to take with me. The rest I had sold or donated, determined to begin my new life with the essentials. To my surprise, Nathan appeared mid-morning, alone.
Need any help? He asked, hands in his pockets, seeming almost shy.
It's all under control, I replied, but I'm glad you came. We entered the apartment, now almost empty. The marks on the walls where pictures had hung were like ghosts of my previous life. It's strange, commented Nathan, looking around. I spent my entire life coming in and out of this place, and now you'll come in and out of another place, I completed. A place by the sea with fresh air and a cherry tree in the garden. He smiled slightly. I guess so. Where's Tyler? I asked, noticing his absence. With Christine buying things for your housewarming gift, he replied, with a mischievous glint in his eyes. They won't let me tell you what it is. My housewarming gift? For your new house. It was Tyler's idea. He's been saving his allowance to buy something special for Grandma's beach house. I was touched by the gesture. He's a wonderful child. Yes, he is, nodded Nathan, with paternal pride. Sometimes I wonder how Christine and I managed to create someone so generous and sensitive. I used to wonder the same about you, I said with a smile, especially when you were a teenager and all you did was grunt and eat. He laughed, a genuine sound that reminded me of the Nathan I knew before all these complications. I'm sorry for everything that happened, Mom. Really. I know, son, and I'm also sorry for not handling some things better. Perhaps I should have explained my feelings earlier instead of simply exploding when everything accumulated. We remained silent for a moment, each processing how we had reached this point. You know, he finally said, Christine has been reflecting a lot about all this, about how we treated you, especially at Tyler's party. She says she never realized how much you've done for us until she was about to lose it. It's not about losing or winning, Nathan. It's about balance, about mutual respect. I know, and we want to try. Really. The movers called from the door, announcing they were ready to leave for Cape Cod. I should get going, said Nathan. Would you like me to drive you? Or are you going with the moving truck? I'll go with them, I replied. I want to see everything find its place in my new home. He nodded, understanding. We'll call you tonight to see how you're doing. And next weekend, if it works for you, I'd like to bring Tyler to spend the night. Just him and me. Christine has a family commitment. I'd love that, I said, feeling warm hope blossoming in my chest. We said goodbye with a hug, longer and more heartfelt than any we had shared in years. As I watched him walk away, I thought about how sometimes we have to break patterns to be able to build something better. The trip to Cape Cod was quiet and meditative. From the passenger seat of the truck, I watched as the landscape gradually changed, the city buildings giving way to green fields and, finally, to the brilliant blue line of the sea on the horizon. When we arrived at my new house, I felt a mixture of nervousness and excitement. Had I made the right decision? Could I really start over at 67 years old? The process of unloading and arranging my belongings took almost all day. By the time the movers left, the sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. I sat on my small deck with a cup of tea, watching as the city lights began to come on, reflecting in the water. The phone rang. It was Nathan. How are you, Mom? Everything okay? Everything's perfect, I replied. I'm sitting on the deck watching the most beautiful sunset you can imagine. I'm glad, he said, and I could hear the sincerity in his voice. Tyler wants to talk to you. There was a noise as the phone changed hands, and then my grandson's excited voice. Grandma, are you in your new house already? Can you see the ocean? Are there fish? Does the cherry tree have cherries? I laughed at his enthusiasm. Yes, my love. I'm in my new house. I can see a bit of the ocean from my deck. I can't see the fish from here, but I'm sure they're there. And yes, the cherry tree has some small cherries that will grow big and red. Great. Can I come see it all soon? Your dad told me you're coming next weekend. I can't wait to show you everything. Yes, and I'll give you your gift. Dad, don't tell her what it is. I heard Nathan laugh in the background. I won't tell her anything, champ. After chatting a bit more, we said goodbye with promises to call the next day. I remained sitting on the deck until the last trace of light disappeared from the sky, feeling a peace I hadn't experienced in a long time. The following days were a whirlwind of activity, unpacking, organizing, getting to know the neighborhood. discovered a small market a few streets away where fishermen sold their fresh catch every morning. I found a bakery that made the best bread I had tasted in years, and to my delight, I met several neighbors who welcomed me with warm smiles and small housewarming gifts. Margaret, my new friend from the park in Boston, kept her promise and introduced me to the ceramics group at the local cultural center. I signed up for classes that would begin the following week, feeling the excitement of a child before her first day of school. Friday afternoon, while watering the plants in my small garden, I heard a car stop in front of the house. To my surprise, it was Nathan with Tyler, a day earlier than planned. "Surprise, Grandma!" shouted Tyler, running toward me with a package wrapped in bright paper. We couldn't wait until tomorrow. I welcomed them with enthusiastic hugs. What a wonderful surprise. Come in, come in." Nathan looked different, more relaxed, smiling, almost like the son I remembered before the tensions began. "Hope you don't mind that we arrived a day early," he said, carrying a small suitcase. Tyler was so excited he couldn't wait, and I managed to finish early at work. "It's a perfect surprise," I assured him, leading them inside. "I just made fresh lemonade with the first lemons from the tree. Would you like to try it?" "Yes, please," exclaimed Tyler, jumping with excitement. "And can I give her her gift now, Dad? Can I?" Nathan nodded, smiling at his son's enthusiasm. "Go ahead, champ." Tyler handed me the package with hands trembling with excitement. "It's for your new house, Grandma, so you never feel alone." I unwrapped the gift carefully, aware of his expectant gaze. Inside was a digital photo frame, one of those that display changing photos. "Dad put lots of pictures of us," explained Tyler, "and we can send new ones from our phones. That way, we'll always be with you, even if we can't come every day." Tears welled up in my eyes as I turned on the frame and saw the images appear. Tyler as a baby in my arms, Nathan and I at his graduation, the three of us in the park last summer, and many more, a digital album of my life with them. "It's the most beautiful gift anyone has ever given me," I said, hugging Tyler tightly. "I'll put it in a special place where I can see it every day." Nathan watched the scene with an expression that mixed joy and a touch of remorse. "I have something for you too, Mom," he said, taking an envelope from his jacket pocket. "It's not as nice as Tyler's gift, but I hope it means something." I opened the envelope with curiosity. Inside was an official paper, a bank transfer to Tyler's school. "I've paid the full tuition for next year," explained Nathan, "with my money, not yours. And I've canceled the financial aid application we had submitted. I think it's time for Christine and me to take full responsibility for Tyler's education." I was speechless for a moment, understanding the profound meaning of his gesture. "I also spoke with my boss," he continued. "He's offered me a promotion that I've been avoiding for years because it would mean more responsibility and less free time. I've accepted it. The salary increase will help us cover expenses without needing to depend on you." "Nathan," I finally said, "this means a lot to me, not because I didn't want to help Tyler, but because it shows you really understand what I was trying to tell you." "It took me a while to understand it," he admitted with a sad smile. "I guess I was so used to having you always there, solving everything, that I never stopped to think how unfair that was to you." Tyler, unaware of the emotional weight of the conversation, was pulling at my hand. "Grandma, I want to see my room. Have you fixed it up yet?" "Almost," I replied, grateful for the interruption. "Let's go see it, and you can tell me what else it needs." The weekend passed like a dream. Nathan and I cooked together, something we hadn't done in years. Tyler helped me plant tomatoes in the small garden. The three of us walked on the beach, collecting shells and building sandcastles. In the evenings after putting Tyler to bed, Nathan and I would sit on the deck, drinking wine and talking like adults, really talking, without tension or hidden expectation. Sunday afternoon, as I was preparing coffee before they left, Nathan joined me in the kitchen. "Mom," he said softly, so that Tyler, who was watching cartoons in the living room, couldn't hear him. "There's something else I need to tell you." "What's happening?" "I talked to Diane," he said, surprising me. "I explained how we had made you feel, especially at Tyler's party. It was a difficult conversation." "I can imagine," I murmured, remembering Diane's haughty expression. "She's embarrassed, Mom, in her own way. She's not a woman who easily admits her mistakes, but she's understood that her behavior and ours was unacceptable. You don't need to mediate between us, Nathan." "I'm not mediating. I just want you to know that things are going to change. They've already changed." He paused, carefully choosing his words. "And not just with Diane. Christine and I have been talking a lot about how we've handled things, about the values we want to teach Tyler. We don't want him to grow up thinking it's okay to treat people like disposable resources." His words resonated deeply with me. That's an important lesson for any child. "A lesson I should have learned a long time ago," he admitted humbly, "and that I'm learning now thanks to you." The goodbye was less painful than I had feared. I knew they would return soon, that this wasn't a separation, but the beginning of a new way of being together. "I'll come next weekend, Grandma," promised Tyler, hugging me tightly, "and I'll bring my books so you can read to me before bed." "I'll be waiting for you, my love," I replied, kissing his forehead. Nathan hugged me with a naturalness that surprised me. "Thank you, Mom, for everything, for teaching me, even now, what it means to truly love." I watched them drive away, feeling a mixture of melancholy and deep satisfaction. My heart was full, but in a different way than I had known before. It wasn't the suffocating fullness of living exclusively for others, but the balanced richness of giving and receiving, of loving and being loved in reciprocity. That night, sitting on my deck under a sky full of stars, with the soft sound of the sea as background music, I thought about the long road I had traveled. From the young widow who worked double shifts to support her son, to the grandmother who had found the courage to reclaim her own life. The next morning, I woke with the first light of dawn. I dressed in comfortable clothes and went out to walk on the beach, just as I had dreamed of doing for years. The cool sand under my feet, the sea breeze on my face, the infinite horizon stretching before me, everything was exactly as I had imagined. Upon returning home, I stopped at the market to buy fresh fish and vegetables. The vendor, a robust woman with a generous smile, already greeted me by name. "How was your first weekend with the family, Mrs. Morgan?" she asked while wrapping the cod I had chosen. "Wonderful, Isabel," I replied with a smile. "Better than I had expected. I'm glad. You know, when my husband and I moved here 10 years ago, our children thought we had gone crazy. Now they fight over who gets to visit us each summer." I laughed, recognizing the pattern. Life has these ironies. Back at home, I placed the digital photo frame Tyler had given me in a special spot in the living room where I could see it from any angle. The images changed slowly, captured moments of family love, reminding me that physical distance doesn't have to mean emotional distance. That afternoon, I attended my first ceramics class at the Cultural Center. Margaret introduced me to the group, people of all ages united by the desire to create something beautiful with their own hands. I was surprised by how natural it felt, as if a part of me that had been asleep for decades was finally awakening. "You have good hands for this," commented the teacher, an older man named Edward, as he helped me center the clay on the wheel. "You can tell you've taken care of delicate things all your life." "I've cared for people," I replied. "I suppose the principles are similar: patience, attention, love, and also knowing when to let go," he added with a wisdom that only comes with the years. "Clay, like people, needs space to become what it's meant to be." His words accompanied me for the rest of the day. Yes, that had been my great lesson. Learning let go, not from lack of love, but precisely because true love gives freedom. The following weeks established a new rhythm in my life. On Mondays and Wednesdays, I attended ceramics classes. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I walked on the beach at dawn, sometimes alone, sometimes with a small group of retirees I had met at the market. On Fridays, I tended my garden, harvesting the first fruits of my labor, and on weekends, with increasing frequency, I received visits from Nathan, Christine, and Tyler. To my surprise, even Diane came once, bringing a homemade cake as a peace offering. We didn't talk directly about what had happened, but in her way of interacting with me, more careful, more respectful, I felt a silent acknowledgement that things had changed. One summer Sunday, while Tyler was taking a nap after an exhausting morning at the beach, Nathan and Christine sat with me on the deck. "We have something to tell you, Mom," said Nathan, taking Christine's hand. "I'm pregnant," she announced with a radiant smile. 3 months along. Tyler will have a little brother or sister in winter. Joy flooded through me. "That's wonderful. Congratulations to both of you. We want to ask you something," continued Nathan. "If it's a girl, we'd like to name her Eleanor after you." Tears came to my eyes before I could hold them back. "I would be very honored." "It's the least we can do," said Christine with sincerity. "You've taught us so much about what it means to be a real mother." Later that day, as I watched them pack to return to Boston, I felt a deep certainty that everything was exactly as it should be. My life in Cape Cod hadn't meant losing my family, but gaining a more authentic and balanced relationship with them. I wasn't the invisible grandmother who silently contributed, nor the sacrificial provider who gave up her own dreams. I was simply Eleanor, a woman who had learned, even in her 7th decade of life, that it's never too late to claim the dignity of being a complete person. The value of being a grandmother wasn't in disappearing so others could shine, but in shining with my own light, showing the way for future generations to learn to live with authenticity and mutual respect. And as the sun set over the Atlantic, painting the sky gold and purple, I knew that I had finally found not only my place in the world, but my place within myself, a place of peace, of dignity, of self-love, a place from which I could love others, not from sacrifice, but from fullness. At 67 years old, my life wasn't ending. It was, in many ways, just beginning.